Samuel Reed counted 3 coins by candlelight, their copper faces worn smooth as river stones. Outside his failing ranch, October wind rattled through empty feed bins. The mortgage notice lay unfolded beside his father's Spencer rifle, 3 bullets left, 1 lame horse. And tomorrow the bank would come. He prepared his last supper, 1 scrawny rabbit, wild onions, hardtack old as memory. The coal oil lamp flickered low, casting shadows that danced like departed dreams across bare walls. Then wagon wheels grinding through darkness. Dust rose ghost-like against the full moon. 3 wagons sat abandoned on the trail. Thornton auction house painted on their sides. Samuel approached with his rifle, peering into each bed. In the third, beneath rotting canvas, he found her, a woman curled tight, wrists bearing rope burns. Cherokee features defiant despite the filthy calico dress. "Just water, mister," she whispered. "Then I'll move on." But Samuel Reed had already decided tonight, loneliness would end. Before we continue, please leave a like and let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. "The barn's good enough," Mara said, backing away from the house door. "I know my place." Samuel studied her in the moonlight, the way she held her shoulders straight despite everything, how her hands trembled only when she thought he wasn't looking. "Barn's got mice. House has got a hearth." "I said the barn's fine." He didn't argue. Instead, he disappeared inside, returning with his mother's quilt, the wedding ring pattern she'd stitched during her last winter, blue and cream colors still bright despite 20 years. He handed it to Mara along with a cavalry blanket. "That's too fine for, it's a cold night." Samuel turned back toward the house. "I'll bring supper." He divided everything with care. The rabbit stew went into 2 equal bowls, though his stomach cramped with hunger. His last piece of cornbread, 3 days old, he cut in half, placing the larger portion on the chipped blue willow plate his mother had carried from Tennessee. The final treasure, a jar of plum preserves, unopened since last Christmas. Mara sat on a hay bale, the quilt wrapped around her shoulders like armor. When Samuel set the plate before her, she stared at the food as if it might disappear. "When did you last eat?" he asked. "Tuesday. No, Monday." She picked up the horn spoon carefully. They stopped feeding lots that didn't sell quick. The word lots hung between them like a curse. Samuel poured coffee from his tin pot, the bitter scent mixing with barn dust and old hay. "What's your name?" He kept his voice soft, like gentling a spooked horse. She paused, spoon halfway to her mouth. "They wrote Lot 47 on my papers." "That's not a name." Dying for the first time, her eyes met his directly. Mara Stonecrow." Samuel nodded slowly, considering. "Mrs. Stonecrow. Then, that's proper." Something shifted in her face, surprise, perhaps, or the first crack in a wall built from necessity. "Nobody's called me Mrs. before. My husband died at Washita River. Army said he was hostile." She tasted the stew, closed her eyes. "This is good. Too good to waste on a guest at my table." Samuel interrupted. "My mother would haunt me if I fed a visitor poorly." Mara studied him over the tin cup's rim. "Why? Why what? Why share your last meal with someone you don't know?" Samuel considered the empty bins, the mortgage notice, the 3 coins that wouldn't buy breakfast. "Because hungry is hungry, Mrs. Stonecrow, don't matter who's feeling it." They sat in comfortable silence until Mara set down her empty bowl. The moon had risen higher, casting silver light through the barn's gaps. She pulled the quilt tighter, looking toward the open door where the abandoned wagons stood like monuments to cruelty. "You want to know why they left me?" she asked. Samuel refilled her coffee cup. "Only if you want to tell it. My mother was Cherokee, Eastern Band, before the removal." Mara's fingers traced the quilt's pattern. "My father was a surveyor from Philadelphia. He promised to marry her, even gave her a ring. But when his work finished, he went back east, left her with me growing in her belly." The wind picked up, stirring the hay dust. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Neither world wanted me, Mara continued. Too white for the Cherokee, too Indian for the towns. But my mother had a brother who went west after the removal. Black Elk. They call him now. He leads 200 warriors, maybe more. Samuel's hand stilled on his coffee cup. Black Elk. I've heard the name. The auction house heard it too. That's why Thornton's men abandoned me. 3 days back. Rumors started. Said Black Elk was riding through the territory, searching for family sold at auctions. The other buyers got scared, wouldn't bid, when the auctioneer couldn't sell me, and then heard Black Elk might be close. She shrugged. Easier to cut losses, leave me in the middle of nowhere. They could have just freed you, Mara laughed, bitter as the coffee. Then they couldn't sell me again somewhere else, after Black Elk passes through. She stood, walking to the barn door. I should leave, if he finds me here, with you. That's when they heard it. Faint at first, like distant thunder. But the almanac on Samuel's shelf showed clear skies for the week, and the wind carried no smell of rain. Horses, Samuel said quietly. Many horses. The sound grew steadily, rhythmic and purposeful. Not the scattered beat of cowboys heading home, but organized, deliberate. Mara's face paled in the moonlight. It's him. Her voice barely carried. He found me. Samuel stood, his mind calculating quickly. His lame horse couldn't outrun anything. The ranch had no cellar, no place to hide. Even if there was, the tracks from the wagons led straight to his door. We could head for the creek bed, Mara suggested, already gathering the quilt. No. Samuel walked to his father's Spencer rifle, checking the 3 bullets he'd been saving. I won't have you running anymore. You don't understand. Black Elk thinks all white men are slavers. After what the army did, what the auction houses do, then we'll show him different. Samuel lit his bullseye lantern, then moved through the house lighting every lamp he owned. 3 coal oil lamps, 6 tallow candles, even the decorative one his mother saved for Christmas. Light spilled from every window. What are you doing? Mara demanded. Making sure they know we're not hiding. He opened both the front and back doors wide, propping them with stones. My mother used to say darkness breeds suspicion. Let them see everything. The hoofbeats multiplied, surrounding the property like water filling a bowl. Samuel could make out individual rhythms now trained war ponies, moving in formation. His wind-up pocket watch showed midnight approaching. Mara grabbed his arm. You have 3 bullets and a lame horse. This is madness. Maybe. Yeah. Samuel pulled out his clean white shirt, the one he'd been saving for his own burial if the bank took everything. Put this on over your dress. What? If they come, you'll face them as a person, not as someone's property. That dress marks you from the auction house. This is clean, decent. She took the shirt with shaking hands. It hung loose on her frame, but she buttoned it carefully, tucking it into her skirt. Samuel noticed the Navajo saddle blanket folded in the corner a trade from years back and draped it around her shoulders like a shawl. You look like someone worth respecting, he said. They'll think you bought me, that you're just another. Then we'll tell them the truth. Samuel loaded his 3 bullets slowly, deliberately. The rifle was old but clean, its stock cracked but solid. About the shared meal, about kindness without cost. The horses stopped moving. Silence fell like a held breath. Then, from every direction, warriors appeared in the moonlight. They materialized from shadows painted horses, feathers in their hair, rifles and lances held ready but not aimed. Samuel counted 50, then 100, then lost track. They formed a perfect circle around his small ranch, silent as death itself. A single rider emerged from the eastern line, his war bonnet trailing eagle feathers, a beaded medicine bag visible on his chest. Even at distance, his presence commanded attention. 2 other riders flanked him, one carrying a staff decorated with scalps, the other bearing what looked like a cavalry guidon turned upside down. Mara stepped out of the barn, into the full light from the house. "I won't hide," she said, her voice strong now. "Not anymore." Samuel stood beside her, rifle pointed at the ground but visible. His heart hammered against his ribs, but his hands stayed steady. Together. They waited as Black Elk rode forward, 200 warriors watching in perfect stillness. The moon reached its zenith, casting everything in sharp relief: the poverty of the ranch, the dignity of two people refusing to run, and the moment when everything would change. Black Elk rode forward with deliberate slowness, his painted horse stepping high and proud. 11 warriors followed, forming a half circle in Samuel's yard. They dismounted in unison, a practiced movement that spoke of discipline and shared purpose. The remaining warriors stayed mounted, rifles across their laps, creating an impenetrable ring around the property. Up close, Black Elk stood taller than Samuel expected. His beaded war shirt caught the lamplight from the house. Geometric patterns in blue and yellow telling stories Samuel couldn't read. A silver concho belt circled his waist, and his face bore paint-black stripes across his cheeks, a red handprint on his forehead. He carried a lance decorated with eagle feathers and what looked like cavalry insignia taken in battle. The man beside him stepped forward younger, wearing white man's clothes mixed with traditional items. A trade blanket over his shoulders, boots instead of moccasins, but his hair hung long and free. "I am Joseph Crow Dog," the man said in accented English. "I speak for Black Elk, war chief of the Cherokee who would not walk the white man's trail to Oklahoma. He asks why you have his sister's daughter." Samuel kept his rifle pointed down but visible. "I found Mrs. Stonecrow abandoned by the auction wagons. I offered her food and shelter." Joseph translated. Black Elk's response came sharp and fast, his eyes never leaving Samuel's face. "He says white men do not give shelter without taking payment." Joseph translated. "You bought her. Where are the papers? Where is the bill of sale?" "There are no papers because there was no sale," Samuel said firmly. "Check the house if you want. Check the barn. You'll find nothing but what you see: a poor rancher who shared his supper with someone who needed it." Black Elk spoke again, gesturing toward the house with his lance. "He says his warriors will search." Joseph translated. "If they find chains, ropes, any sign you have kept her against her will, or papers showing purchase." Joseph paused, choosing his words carefully. "It will not go well for you." 6 warriors entered the house while others searched the barn. Samuel could hear them moving through his few possessions, opening the old trunk, checking beneath the bed, rifling through the papers on his desk. One warrior emerged carrying the mortgage notice, showing it to Black Elk. More rapid Cherokee words. Joseph frowned as he translated. "This shows you owe much money. Perhaps you bought her to sell again, to pay your debts." "That paper shows I'll lose this ranch tomorrow," Samuel said. "The bank's coming. I've got 3 coins to my name, 1 lame horse, and barely enough ammunition to hunt rabbits. What would I buy anyone with?" A warrior came from the barn carrying the empty bowls. The divided cornbread remains on the blue willow plate. He spoke quietly to Black Elk, whose expression shifted slightly. 2 bowls, Joseph said slowly. 2 portions. You fed her. I fed a guest, Samuel corrected. Mrs. Stonecrow was hungry. I had food. That's all there is to it. Black Elk stepped closer, close enough that Samuel could see the scars on his chest through the opening of his war shirt. Old wounds, maybe from Washita River or Sand Creek. The chief spoke directly to Samuel now, his voice low and intense, though Samuel couldn't understand the words. He asked, Joseph translated, why you call her Mrs. P when she is marked as property. Her dress bears the auction house stamp. She is numbered, not named. Before Samuel could answer, Mara stepped forward. She'd been silent, standing in the overlap of shadow and light. But now she moved into the full illumination from the house. The white shirt over her auction dress caught the light, the Navajo blanket around her shoulders giving her an air of dignity. She spoke in Cherokee. The effect was immediate. Black Elk's lance wavered, its point dropping toward the ground. His eyes widened, focusing on her face with an intensity that made Samuel step protectively closer to her. Mara continued speaking, her voice growing stronger with each word. She gestured to Samuel, to the house, to the shared meals remains. Several warriors dismounted, moving closer to hear better. Joseph Crow Dog's expression shifted from suspicion to surprise. Black Elk interrupted her with a sharp question. Mara responded, pulling the collar of the white shirt aside to show something at her throat, a small beaded medicine bag on a leather cord that had been hidden beneath the fabric. "Impossible," Black Elk said in English, the first English word Samuel had heard from him. He reached out as if to touch the medicine bag, then pulled his hand back. "It's me, Uncle," Mara said, switching to English. "Little Magpie. You called me that because I talked too much as a child. You made this bag for me before the soldiers came to the village." Black Elk's composure cracked. He spoke rapidly in Cherokee, gesturing between Mara and Samuel, his voice rising with each sentence. Other warriors pressed closer, their weapons lowering but their attention sharp. "He wants to know why you're wearing the white man's clothes," Joseph translated unnecessarily. As Mara was already answering in Cherokee, she switched back to English, perhaps for Samuel's benefit. "I told him you gave me your clean shirt so I could face him as a person, not as numbered property. I told him about the quilt, your mother's quilt, and how you gave me the larger portion of bread when you're starving yourself." "These are lies," one of the younger warriors said in English. "White men don't starve themselves for Indians." "Then look," Mara challenged, pointing to the house. "Look at his empty pantry. Count his coins, 3 coppers. Check his horse, too lame to work. This man has nothing. Yet he gave me half of his nothing, more than half." Black Elk walked past Samuel without warning, entering the house. Samuel tensed but didn't follow. The chief moved through the small space, examining everything with the thoroughness of a tracker reading sign. He found the 3 coins on the table, the empty preserve jar Mara had scraped clean, the mortgage notice with tomorrow's date circled. He emerged carrying Samuel's father's Bible, fell open to a pressed flower marking a page. He spoke to Joseph, who looked uncomfortable as he translated. He asks if you can read the words your God writes about kindness to strangers. Samuel took the Bible carefully. His father had marked the passage years ago, Hebrews, about entertaining angels unaware. "My father marked this. He used to say we never know when kindness might be the only gospel someone reads." "Your father," Black Elk said in careful English. "He is dead. Fever, 3 winters ago. My mother too." Black Elk studied Samuel's face for a long moment. "You have her eyes," he said finally. Switching back to Cherokee, Joseph translated. "He says you have your mother's eyes. He met her once, years ago. She gave his wounded warriors water when the army was chasing them. Asked for nothing in return." The circle of warriors had pressed closer now, their hostility shifting to curiosity. One older warrior with a buffalo hide shield across his back spoke up in Cherokee. Mara translated, "He asks why you didn't hide when you heard us coming. You have 3 bullets. We have 200 rifles." Samuel considered his answer carefully. "Because Mrs. Stonecrow has been running and hiding enough. I figured if we were going to die, we'd die standing in the light, with dignity." Black Elk walked a slow circle around Samuel and Mara, his lance tapping the ground with each step. When he completed the circle, he stood directly in front of Samuel. "You truly gave her food expecting nothing," Joseph translated. "No payment, no service, no warming your bed. I gave her food because she was hungry," Samuel said simply. "Same as I did for the Mexican family 2 months back, or the freedman who came through in spring. Hungry is hungry." "You're lying," Black Elk said through Joseph. "There must be a price. There is always a price with white men." Mara stepped between them. "Not with this one," she said firmly in English, then repeated it in Cherokee. "This one sees people, not property. He called me Mrs. Stonecrow before he knew I had any family to defend me. He gave me dignity when I had nothing to trade for it." The standoff stretched taut as a bowstring. 200 warriors waited for Black Elk's signal. Samuel stood with his 3 bullets, knowing they meant nothing against such numbers. And in the center, Mara stood between two worlds, translating more than words, bridging the chasm of mistrust carved by decades of betrayal. "We will wait," Black Elk said finally through Joseph. "We will watch, and in the morning we will know the truth of this man's heart." Black Elk planted his lance in the ground, its feathers stirring in the night breeze. He spoke to his warriors in Cherokee, and they began setting up a formal council arrangement, some dismounting to form an inner circle, others remaining on horseback as witnesses. An elderly warrior with gray braids brought forward a painted parfleche bag, removing what looked like a pipe wrapped in red cloth. "We will hear the woman speak," Joseph Crow Dog translated. "All of it, every detail of how this white man treated her." Mara stood straighter, the Navajo blanket shifting on her shoulders. She began in Cherokee, then switched to English so Samuel could understand. "When he found me in the wagon, I expected rough hands. Men who find abandoned women usually take what they want." She paused, meeting Black Elk's eyes. "This one asked if I was hurt. Asked, not grabbed. When I said I needed water, he brought his own canteen first before asking anything else." She walked to the barn, returning with the quilt. "This is his mother's wedding quilt. Look at the stitching, 20 years of careful mending. It's the finest thing he owns." She held it up to the light from the house. "He gave it to me for warmth. Not later. After deciding I was worth something. Immediately, as soon as he saw me shivering." An older warrior reached out to touch the quilt's edge, examining the pattern. He spoke quietly to Black Elk. "Dancing Bear says this is quality work." Joseph translated. "The kind families pass down, not something given lightly to strangers." "Then there was the meal," Mara continued. She picked up the blue willow plate, its chipped edge catching the lantern light. "This man has been starving. Look." She led them into the house, pointing to the empty shelves. Bare, nothing but dust and spider webs. He had one rabbit, probably his food for 3 days. He divided it equally. But the cornbread... She retrieved the remains from where the warrior had set them down. "See the crumbs. Measure the 2 sides." He gave me the larger piece. A starving man gave a stranger the bigger portion of his last bread. Black Elk picked up the cornbread remains, studying them. The difference was subtle but visible, one portion clearly larger than the other. He passed it to the elderly warrior, Dancing Bear, who held it like it was sacred. "There's more," Mara said. "The preserves look." She showed them the empty jar. "See the label, Christmas 1879. He'd been saving it for over a year. Something special. Probably his mother's last batch before she died. He opened it for me. A stranger who couldn't give him anything in return." Several warriors had entered the house now, examining everything with careful attention. One found Samuel's ledger book, its pages documenting his slide toward bankruptcy, cattle sold off one by one, land parceled away, debts mounting. "He's broker than a reservation Indian," one young warrior said in English, studying the numbers. "How does he even eat?" Another warrior emerged from the back room carrying Samuel's clothing, 2 patched shirts, trousers mended with different colored thread, socks darned so many times they were more repair than original wool. "Even his boots," the warrior said, showing the worn soles reinforced with leather cut from what looked like an old saddle. "This man owns nothing that isn't mended, patched, or wearing out." Black Elk walked to the small lean-to attached to the house. Inside, he found Samuel's tools, a harness held together with wire, horseshoe nails carefully straightened for reuse, a collection of bent nails in a tin can. Wild herbs hung drying from the rafters, sage, yarrow, willow bark, medicine plants, Dancing Bear observed, sniffing the bundles. "He gathers like our grandmothers did, makes his own healing." "Because he can't afford a doctor," Samuel said quietly. "Haven't been able to for 2 years." As Black Elk continued his investigation, shapes began emerging from the darkness beyond the warrior circle. 3 figures approached cautiously, a Mexican woman in a faded rebozo, a Chinese man in worn cotton clothes, and an older black man with the careful walk of someone who'd spent too many years looking over his shoulder. "Let them through," Black Elk commanded through Joseph. The warriors parted, creating a path. The Mexican woman spoke first, her English heavily accented. "Señor Samuel, we heard the horses. We came to help if—" She trailed off, seeing the mass of armed warriors. "Dios mío." "Maria," Samuel said, surprised. "What are you doing here? It's dangerous." "We heard horses. Thought maybe the bank comes early to take your land," she said. "We came to speak for you, to tell them what you did for us." Black Elk's attention sharpened. "What did he do?" Maria clutched her rebozo tighter. 2 months ago, my family comes through. My husband was sick from bad water. This man, he has almost no food. But he shares. He knows the healing plants, makes tea for my husband's fever. We stay 3 days in his barn while Roberto recovers. He never asks for payment, never asks for anything. "That's true," the Chinese man added, stepping forward. His English was clearer but careful. "I am Chen Wei. 6 weeks passed. I run from the railroad camp after the boss man died. They blame Chinese workers for everything. I hide here one night. This man finds me, scared, hungry. He shares his supper, helps me travel at night to next town where Chinese family takes me in, saves my life, asks nothing." The older black man removed his hat. "Name's Ezekiel. Used to be property, like that lady there." He nodded toward Mara. "Got my freedom papers, but some folks don't care about papers. 3 months back, bounty hunters came through, looking for runaways. Mr. Samuel hid me in his root cellar. Told them hunters he hadn't seen nobody. Risked his own self for someone he didn't know." Black Elk listened to each testimony, his expression unreadable. Other warriors began speaking among themselves apparently. Several had heard of or witnessed Samuel's small kindnesses from afar. "I seen him last spring," one warrior said in halting English. "My grandfather's horse threw a shoe near here. This man fixed it, shared his water, wouldn't take the silver dollar grandfather offered. He helped my cousin reach the Fort Smith doctor," another added. "Drew him a map, gave him food for the journey." The testimonies continued, each one a small stone building toward understanding. Black Elk walked through Samuel's house again, this time more slowly. He found the mortgage notice, studied the date tomorrow. He found the 3 copper coins, worn thin from handling. He found a stack of letters, all unopened bills and final notices. "You could have sold her," Black Elk said suddenly in English, surprising everyone. "Men would pay good money for a woman, even an Indian woman, especially an Indian woman, for certain purposes. You could have saved your land." Samuel's jaw tightened. "This land ain't worth a person's freedom. Land is everything to a farmer. Freedom is everything to a human being," Samuel countered. "My parents came west as indentured servants, worked 7 years to earn their liberty. They taught me that no land, no amount of money, is worth putting chains on another person." Dancing Bear had been examining the barn while others talked. He emerged carrying something wrapped in burlap. "Found this hidden in the hay," he said in Cherokee. Black Elk unwrapped it carefully, a cavalry pistol, well oiled and loaded. 6 bullets, Dancing Bear reported, plus the 3 in his rifle, 9 bullets total. He didn't tell us about this gun. The warriors tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Samuel didn't flinch. "That was my father's," he said simply. "I was saving it to sell for seed corn. If the bank gave me another season, it's worth maybe $20 to the right buyer." "Why didn't you show it when we came?" Black Elk demanded through Joseph. "Because I wasn't planning to use it," Samuel said. 9 bullets or 3 doesn't matter against 200 warriors. Besides, showing hidden weapons would have looked like I was planning to fight. I wanted to talk, not shoot." Black Elk hefted the pistol, checking its balance. "This is good weapon. Army issue. You could get $30, maybe 40. "Maybe," Samuel agreed. "But then I'd be selling the last thing my father held. Some things are worth more than their price." "Like people," Mara said quietly. The night had deepened while they talked. The moon was descending toward the western horizon, and several warriors had built small fires for warmth. The scene had transformed from a potential massacre to something resembling a town meeting, albeit one with significantly more weapons. Chen Wei had been translating quietly for Maria's husband Roberto, who had arrived late, still weak from his recent illness. The Mexican man stepped forward, removing his worn sombrero. "Señor," he said to Black Elk in broken English, then switched to Spanish. Maria translated, "My husband says he wants you to know that this man gave us his medicine, the willow bark tea, when his own joints hurt from the cold. He limps some mornings but gave away his pain medicine for strangers." Black Elk studied Samuel with those dark, intense eyes. "You gather warriors' pain medicine willow bark and give it away." "Pain is pain," Samuel said, unconsciously echoing his earlier words. "Don't matter who's feeling it." "You keep saying that," Black Elk observed. "Hungry is hungry. Pain is pain. Is this your religion?" Samuel considered the question. "My religion says to love thy neighbor. Doesn't specify which neighbor, or what color they got to be." "Pretty words are easy," Black Elk said. "Living them when you're starving is another thing." "Then look at how he's lived them," Mara interjected. She gestured to the gathered witnesses. "We're all different Cherokee, Mexican, Chinese, freedmen. He helped us all, asked nothing from any of us. That's not words, that's choices, made again and again, even when those choices left him with nothing." Dancing Bear spoke at length in Cherokee. Joseph translated. "The elder says in the old days, before the white man came, generosity was the highest virtue. A chief's wealth was measured not by what he kept, but by what he gave away. This white man lives like the old chiefs, giving from his poverty rather than from excess." Black Elk walked to where his lance stood in the ground. He pulled it free, holding it horizontally as he studied the feathers and decorations. Each one told a story, battles fought, victories won, losses endured. "Why?" he asked Samuel directly. "Why give when you have nothing? Why help people who cannot help you back?" "My sister's daughter says you fed her expecting nothing. These others say the same. But there must be reason. White men always have reasons." Samuel looked at the assembled crowd, warriors, refugees, witnesses to small kindnesses. His eyes settled on Mara, standing between worlds in his father's shirt and the Navajo blanket. "My parents died helping neighbors during the fever outbreak," he said finally. "They could have isolated, saved themselves. They chose to help instead. Before my father passed, he told me something. Said the only thing we truly own is what we give away. Everything else, land, money, even life can be taken. But kindness once given, that's yours forever. Nobody can steal what you freely gave." "Philosophy from a poor man," Black Elk said. But his tone had shifted, less challenging. "Only philosophy that matters comes from poor men," Samuel replied. "Rich folks can afford to be cruel. Poor folks, we gotta look out for each other, or none of us survive." Black Elk stood silent for a long moment, his warriors waiting for his judgment. The fire crackled, sending sparks into the darkness. Finally, he spoke in Cherokee, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. Joseph translated, "He says there is an old story among our people about a test the spirits give. They send someone in need to see if people will share from their abundance. But the real test is when they send someone to those who have nothing, to see if they will share from their poverty. This," he says, "is how you recognize a true human being." The old chief looked at Samuel with something that might have been respect. "We will stay until dawn," he said in English. "Then we will know what kind of man you really are." Black Elk raised his lance, speaking commands in Cherokee. The warriors began dismounting in organized groups, their movements efficient despite the darkness. They weren't setting up for war. Samuel recognized the difference. This was a traveling camp being established, with horse lines, fire circles, and designated areas for different family groups. We travel as a village, Joseph Crow Dog explained, noting Samuel's surprise. Not just warriors, families who lost their homes, who refused the reservation. Indeed, as the initial defensive circle broke apart, Samuel saw women emerging from the darkness, some carrying children wrapped in blankets. An elderly woman with a cradle board on her back directed younger women in setting up temporary shelters. Children peered out from behind their mothers' skirts, wide-eyed at the strange scene. Families, Samuel said, looking at Mara. There must be 100 people here. More, Black Elk said in English. 140. What remains of 3 villages? He gestured toward the camp taking shape. We search for those taken and sold, like her. He nodded toward Mara. A woman approached with a bundle, speaking quietly to Black Elk. He nodded and turned to Samuel. My people will share our food. You shared yours when you had nothing. We have something. That's not necessary. It is necessary. Black Elk interrupted. Come, sit. We will talk like human beings, not enemies. Soon, several fires dotted Samuel's property. Warriors had brought iron pots and tripods, setting them up with practiced ease. The smell of cooking meat and fry bread began to fill the air. Someone passed Samuel a piece of pemmican dried meat mixed with berries and fat. His empty stomach cramped at the first bite. Eat slow, an elderly woman advised in accented English, handing him a tin cup of mild tea. Hunger makes the belly forget how to hold food. Samuel found himself seated between Mara and Black Elk, the chief having traded his war lance for a carved pipe. Other warriors and families gathered around the main fire, while Chen Wei, Maria's family, and Ezekiel were welcomed into the circle with surprising ease. You say you lost your parents to fever, Black Elk said, his English improving with use. I lost my sister Mara's mother to white man sickness too, smallpox. The blankets they gave us at the treaty signing carried death. I'm sorry, Samuel said simply. Sorry doesn't bring back the dead. Black Elk stared into the fire. After she died, I looked for little Magpie for Mara. Heard she'd been taken to a mission school. When I got there, they said she'd been bound out for service. Sold, though they used prettier words. Indentured, Mara said quietly. They called it indenturing for our own good. To learn civilization. A young boy, perhaps 6 years old, approached Samuel hesitantly. He held out a piece of fry bread, still warm from the oil. The child said something in Cherokee. He asks if you're hungry. Like his grandmother was before you helped her. Joseph translated. Samuel looked at the child's serious face, then at the offered bread. Tell him thank you, and that his kindness makes it taste better. The boy smiled when Joseph translated, then ran back to his mother. The simple exchange seemed to shift something in the atmosphere. Other warriors began sharing their own stories. I remember your father, Dancing Bear said suddenly. 12 winters ago, Army Patrol shot my son, said he was stealing horses. Your father found him bleeding in a ravine, brought him to our camp at night, risking his neck if soldiers caught him helping a hostile. My son lived because of that. Samuel studied the old warrior's weathered face. He never told me that. Good men don't boast of good deeds, Dancing Bear replied. Your father asked only that we not raid his neighbors' farms. We kept that promise, even after he died. Roberto, stronger now from the tea and food, spoke up in Spanish with Maria translating. My grandfather knew men like this in Mexico. During the war with France, they hid Republicans from the emperor's soldiers. They said conscience matters more than law. Conscience. Black Elk repeated the word thoughtfully. White men speak of it, but rarely show it. He looked at Chen Wei. You run from the railroad. They work Chinese men to death there. Chen Wei nodded. Many die. When we complain, they say Chinese life worth less than Irish or German. Mr. Samuel. He never asked what I was worth, just saw I needed help. A warrior with a scarred face spoke from across the fire. My grandfather, the one whose horse you fixed, he watched you after. Saw you help others. Mexican family with broken wagon. Negro farmers burned out by night riders. Even poor whites heading back east after drought killed their crops. He said you were strange, a white man who acted like a human being. Shouldn't be strange, Samuel said. Should be normal. Should be, Black Elk agreed. But isn't. He refilled his pipe, the tobacco mixed with sage and other herbs. Tell me about the mission schools. What you know. Samuel glanced at Mara, who nodded slightly. They take children. Say it's for education, but it's really to kill the Indian in them. Cut their hair, forbid their language, punish them for praying to their own gods. You know this how. There's one 40 miles north. Sometimes kids run away. Come through here. I point them toward the hills. Give them food. Samuel paused. Never told nobody that before. It's probably illegal. Helping runaways. Black Elk's eyes glittered in the firelight. How many? 7, maybe 8 over the years. Young ones mostly, trying to get home. A woman across the fire began crying softly. She spoke in Cherokee, and Black Elk's face tightened. That's Mourning Dove, Joseph translated. Her daughter ran from the same school 3 moons ago. A girl called Sarah there, but her real name is Singing Bird. Samuel's memory stirred. Skinny girl, maybe 12. Scar on her left hand. Mourning Dove leaped to her feet, speaking rapidly. Black Elk held up a calming hand, turning to Samuel. You saw her. 2 months back. Fed her, drew her a map to avoid the main roads, told her to follow the creek beds north, then cut west at the big cottonwood split by lightning. Mourning Dove was at Samuel's side in seconds, gripping his hands, tears streaming down her face. She spoke in a mix of Cherokee and broken English. She says Singing Bird made it home. Joseph translated unnecessarily. The joy in the woman's face needed no translation. She's with relatives in the northern camps. Why didn't you turn her in? Black Elk asked. There's reward money for returning runaways. Blood money, Samuel said flatly. No different than what they offered for escaped slaves before the war. I won't earn my bread from other people's chains. The fire popped, sending sparks spiraling upward. More food was passed around wojapi, a berry soup that tasted of summer, and strips of venison seasoned with wild onions. Samuel ate carefully, his shrunken stomach protesting the sudden abundance. A teenage boy with his first warrior braids spoke up. My uncle says you were a soldier. That true? Samuel shook his head. My father was, briefly, Union Army, but he left after Sand Creek. Said he didn't join to massacre women and children. Sand Creek, Black Elk repeated. The name fell like a stone into water, ripples of memory spreading through the assembled people. I was there, 14 years old. Saw Black Kettle's peace flag shot to pieces. Saw soldiers take scalps and worse from our dead. My father saw it too, Samuel said quietly. From the other side. It's why he left. Took off his uniform, walked away. They called him a deserter. But he said deserting evil wasn't a crime. They could have hanged him. He said some things are worth hanging for. Like keeping your soul clean. Black Elk studied Samuel with renewed interest. Your father understood then. The uniform doesn't make the man. The choices do. An ancient woman, bent nearly double with age, shuffled forward. She spoke in a voice like wind through dry leaves, and even Black Elk listened with deference. Grandmother Whitehawk, Joseph translated, says she has lived 84 winters. She remembers when white men first came to our lands. Some were evil, bringing whiskey and disease. Some were good, bringing trade and friendship. But most were neither just people trying to survive, like us. She says this one, pointing a gnarled finger at Samuel, reminds her of the first traders, before greed poisoned everything, when a handshake meant something and kindness didn't need explanation. The old woman reached into her pouch, pulling out something that caught the firelight, a trade medal. Silver, with Jefferson's profile on one side. My grandfather got this from Lewis and Clark. Joseph translated her words. When promises meant something, Before the treaties became lies, she pressed it into Samuel's hand. For remembering the old way when strangers could be friends, Samuel tried to give it back. I can't take this. It's your family's. Black Elk stopped him with a gesture. Grandmother gives what she chooses. To refuse is insult. The metal was warm from the old woman's hand, its edges worn smooth by generations of handling. Samuel tucked it carefully into his shirt pocket, over his heart. Tell her I'm honored. Tell her I'll try to be worthy of it. The night deepened around them. Some of the younger children had fallen asleep, carried to blankets by their mothers. The fires burned lower, fed periodically with buffalo chips and sparse wood. Stories continued flowing, raids and rescues, losses and survivals. The whole tragic history of the frontier told from both sides. You asked why I searched for those sold at auctions, Black Elk said suddenly. It started with looking for Mara, for family. But then I found others. Children sold as servants. Women sold as entertainment. Men sold for labor. All illegal now, they say. But it happens. The auction houses just use different words. Indenture, apprenticeship, contract labor, Mara added bitterly. Pretty words for ugly things. So we search, Black Elk continued. Buy them back when we can. Take them back when we can't. Some call us renegades. I call us family. Gathering our scattered people. How many have you found? Samuel asked. 43. Over 2 years. Some didn't want to come, too broken, too afraid, or they'd made new lives. But many, he gestured at the camp. Many came home. Chenwei had been quiet, but now he spoke. In China, we have saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with single step. Mr. Samuel takes many single steps, small kindnesses. They add up, make journey of goodness. Pretty words, one of the younger warriors said dismissively. No, Black Elk corrected. Truth. Look. He pointed at the gathered people. Mexican family here because this man helped them. Chinese man free because of him. Negro man alive because of him. My sister's daughter safe because of him. Children returned to families because he pointed the way. Each small kindness spreads like ripples in water. Samuel shifted uncomfortably. I just did what seemed right. That's the point, Black Elk said. You did it without thinking of reward, without calculating benefit. That's what Grandmother Whitehawk recognized the old way, when helping was natural as breathing. The moon had traveled far across the sky. Dawn was perhaps 3 hours away. The camp had settled into watchful quiet. Guards posted but relaxed. The atmosphere transformed from tension to something approaching peace. Then, cutting through the night's calm, came a new sound, horses approaching from the east. Many horses, moving fast, their riders not trying for silence. Black Elk was on his feet instantly, his warriors rising with him. Weapons appeared in hands, the camp transforming from peaceful to ready in heartbeats. How many so? Black Elk asked his scouts in Cherokee. 8, maybe 10 riders, came the response. Coming hard. Samuel stood, his rifle in hand, though its 3 bullets seemed even more useless now. Mara moved beside him, her face tight with renewed fear. Through the darkness, a voice called out harsh, demanding, familiar. Reed, Samuel, Reed. This is Thornton Agency. We know you got our property. Send her out, or we'll come take her. 8 riders emerged from the darkness into the light of the dying fires, their horses lathered with sweat from hard riding. The lead man, Thornton's foreman Jake Stills, held a coal oil torch high, its flame casting wild shadows. A deputy's badge glinted on his vest, bought or borrowed. Samuel couldn't tell. The others spread out in a line, rifles visible but not yet raised. Black Elk's warriors had formed a protective circle, not surrounding Thornton's men, but creating a living wall between them and the camp. Their weapons remained lowered but ready. The women and children pulled back toward the shadows, though many watched with sharp attention. Reed, Stills called again, his voice carrying the confidence of assumed authority. We tracked our wagons here. You got stolen property a woman purchased legal and proper at territorial auction. Return her now, and we'll overlook the theft. Samuel stepped forward, placing himself between Mara and the riders. Nobody here is property. Stills, you abandoned those wagons and whoever was in them. Stills laughed, an ugly sound. Abandoned? We had temporary delay due to... His eyes swept over the assembled warriors. Local troubles. Now we're back to collect what's ours. He pulled a rolled document from his coat. Got the papers right here. Legal bill of sale, signed by Territorial Judge Crawford. Forged papers don't make ownership, Samuel said flatly. Forged? Stills's face reddened in the torchlight. These are legitimate documents, filed with the Territorial Registry. He unrolled the papers, holding them up. Lot 47 Cherokee white female, approximately 25 years, purchased for $90 by Thornton Auction House as investment property. Investment property, Mara repeated, her voice cutting through the night like a blade. That's what they call women they plan to sell to brothels. Black Elk had been silent, but now he spoke in clear English. Show me these papers. Stills hesitated, eyeing the chief's lance. These are legal documents. Then you have nothing to fear from showing them, Black Elk said. He gestured to Joseph Crow Dog. My translator reads English. He will verify. Reluctantly, Stills dismounted and approached, 5 of his men following while 3 stayed mounted. He handed the papers to Joseph, who held them near the firelight. As Joseph read, his expression shifted from skepticism to surprise. There's more here, Joseph said slowly. A second document, older. Stills tried to snatch the papers back, but Dancing Bear stepped between them, his war club visible at his belt. Joseph continued reading. This is a freedom purchase dated 3 years ago, Joseph announced. Signed by Josiah Reed. Samuel's breath caught. My father? Joseph nodded, still reading. Josiah Reed purchased the freedom of one Mara Stonecrow, called Mary Stone at the mission school. Paid in full. $120. Witnessed by... He paused. Judge Crawford himself. That's impossible. Stills blustered. Those papers were lost. He caught himself, but too late. Lost. Black Elk's voice was dangerously quiet. Or hidden. Chenway stepped forward. I worked for Railroad Company Records Office before. I know documents. May I see? Joseph handed him the papers. Chenway examined them carefully, holding them up to the torchlight, checking watermarks and seals. The freedom paper is real, he announced. See the raised seal, the ink aging. This is 3 years old, like it says, but this bill of sale. He held up the other document. Fresh ink, maybe 3 days old. And look. He pointed to a specific line. Same Judge Crawford's signature, but different hand. This one is traced, copied. You're calling Judge Crawford a forger, Stills demanded. I'm saying someone forged his signature, Chenway corrected. Someone who had access to his real signature? Someone like an auction house that files many documents. Stills's hand moved toward his sidearm, but stopped as dozens of rifle barrels shifted slightly in his direction. The message was clear: the warriors wouldn't start violence, but they would finish it. Even if that freedom paper is real, Stills said, attempting to recover. The woman became property again when she was abandoned by her employer. Territorial law says, I was never abandoned. Mara interrupted, stepping forward. After the mission school sold me illegally despite my father's purchase of my freedom, I was taken by force, kept by force, sold by force. She stood between the 2 armed groups. Samuel's white shirt bright in the firelight, the Navajo blanket draped over her shoulders like a royal robe. But force doesn't make ownership. The law says, Stills began. Whose law? Black Elk challenged. The same law that says my people can't testify in white courts. The same law that stole our land with papers and signatures. The same law that makes legal what conscience knows is wrong. Roberto spoke up in accented English. In Mexico, we had laws that said peasants were property of haciendas. Legal papers, official seals, didn't make it right. Revolution came because papers can lie. This isn't Mexico, Stills snarled. This is American territory, and American law says slavery is abolished. Ezekiel interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of lived experience. 13th Amendment, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude. I memorized those words, carried them in my heart through 20 years of bondage before the war. You can't sell people anymore, no matter what pretty words you use. Stills turned to Samuel. Reed, you're a white man. You understand property rights. This woman, investment or not, represents significant value. Thornton Agency will compensate you for maintaining our property. Say, $20. I'm not for sale, Mara said before Samuel could respond. $30. Stills continued, ignoring her. That's more than you'll see in a year, given your debts. Samuel looked at the foreman with undisguised contempt. You just showed papers proving my father bought her freedom. You hid those papers to resell her, and now you want to pay me to be part of your crime. $50, Stills said desperately. Cash money. Enough to save your ranch. The camp fell silent. Everyone knew what $50 meant to a man about to lose everything. The mortgage notice was still visible on Samuel's table through the open door. Tomorrow's date circled in red. Samuel walked slowly to where Stills stood, close enough that the foreman stepped back involuntarily. My father spent his last money to buy her freedom, money we needed for medicine that might have saved him. He chose her freedom over his life. Samuel's voice was quiet but carried clearly in the still air. You think I'd dishonor that for $50 for any amount? You're a fool, Reed. You'll lose your land come morning. Then I'll lose it with my father's honor intact. Black Elk moved then, positioning himself beside Samuel. This man speaks truth. The woman was freed 3 years ago. Your papers are lies. Leave now, while you can still ride. Stills looked around at the assembled warriors, the Mexican family, Chenway, Ezekiel, and finally at Mara standing tall and dignified despite everything. His bravado crumbled. Judge Crawford will hear about this, he threatened weakly. Territorial marshals will come. Let them come, Black Elk said. We have many witnesses to what was said here, including confession that you hid legal papers to sell a free woman. One of Stills' men, younger than the others, spoke up nervously. Jake, maybe we should go. This ain't worth dying over. Shut up, Stills snapped, but his men were already backing toward their horses. Mara walked forward until she stood directly in front of Stills. She took the forged bill of sale from Chenway, holding it up to the torchlight so everyone could see. Then, with deliberate slowness, she tore it in half. Then, quarters. Then smaller pieces, letting them fall like snow at Stills' feet. I belong to no one but myself, she declared, her voice ringing clear. But I stand with the man who saw that first. She gestured toward Samuel. The man who called me Mrs. Stonecrow when your papers called me Lot 47. The man who gave me dignity when you tried to steal it. The eastern horizon showed the faintest hint of gray dawn approaching, bringing the day Samuel would lose his ranch. The morning star hung bright above the horizon. Witness to this moment of choosing, Stills made one last attempt. The Thornton Agency has resources, influence. We could make things difficult for anyone helping this woman. That includes you, Reed, and you. He pointed at Black Elk. And your renegade band. Black Elk smiled, an expression that held no warmth. We are already called renegades, outlaws, hostiles. Your threats mean nothing. He raised his lance, not in threat, but in declaration. This woman is under our protection. This man who helped her is our friend. Anyone who troubles them troubles us. The 200 warriors shifted slightly, a subtle movement that nevertheless communicated unanimous agreement. The women and children watched from the edges, their silence more powerful than any words. And us, Maria added, stepping forward with Roberto. This man helped us. We stand with him. Count me in that number, Ezekiel said, moving to stand beside Samuel. And me, Chen Wei added, joining the growing line. Stills looked at his men, seeing their reluctance to face such odds for a cause they clearly didn't believe in. His shoulders sagged in defeat. "Mount up," he told his men. "We're leaving." As they turned to go, Stills looked back at Samuel. "You've made an enemy of Thornton Agency, and gained nothing but trouble." "I've gained more than you'll ever understand," Samuel replied quietly. The 8 riders departed, their torches fading into the pre-dawn darkness. The camp stood silent until the hoofbeats faded completely. Then a collective breath was released. Black Elk placed his hand on Samuel's shoulder. "You chose well. Your father would be proud." "He bought her freedom thinking he was saving a stranger," Samuel said, looking at the torn papers scattered on the ground. "Never knew it would matter 3 years later." "Everything matters," Grandmother Whitehawk said through Joseph's translation, having approached on silent feet despite her age. "Every kindness, every cruelty, every choice. They ripple forward like stones in water, touching shores we cannot see." The eastern sky grew lighter, pink and gold beginning to paint the horizon. The new day approached, the day Samuel would lose his land, but had kept his honor. The day Mara's freedom was confirmed not by papers, but by community witness. The day when enemies became allies through the simple act of choosing humanity over law, dignity over profit, right over legal. "The sun comes," Black Elk observed. "A new day, new choices." Samuel looked at the dawn, then at the assembled people, Cherokee, Mexican, Chinese, black, white, all standing together in the growing light. His ranch might be lost, but something greater had been found. "Yes," he agreed. "A new day." The sun's first rays painted the prairie in shades of gold and rose, transforming the landscape from a place of confrontation into something almost sacred. Black Elk raised his lance toward the rising sun, speaking words in Cherokee that sounded like prayer. Other warriors followed, their voices joining in what Joseph Crow Dog quietly explained was a morning song of gratitude. "They sing thanks for surviving the night," Joseph translated softly to Samuel, "for witnessing truth prevail without blood being shed." As the song continued, Mara stood before the assembled crowd, the torn pieces of the false bill of sale still scattered at her feet like fallen leaves. She bent down, gathering them in her hands, then walked to the nearest fire. One by one, she fed the pieces to the flames, each fragment curling and blackening before disappearing into ash. "Let all here witness," she declared, her voice carrying across the camp. "I am Mara Stonecrow, daughter of Ellen Whitedove and Thomas Stonecrow. I was stolen, sold, and enslaved. But today, in front of these witnesses, I declare myself free not because of papers, but because of the courage of a man who saw me as human when others saw property." Black Elk stepped forward, his war paint streaked from the night's humidity but his bearing still commanding. "Who stands witness to this woman's words?" "I do," Samuel said immediately, moving beside Mara. "We do," Maria and Roberto said together, their children clustered around them. "I stand witness," Chen Wei declared. "Count my voice," Ezekiel added, his weathered face proud in the morning light. One by one, the warriors began speaking, some in Cherokee, some in broken English, but all affirming what they had seen. The women and children added their voices, creating a chorus of testimony that grew until all 200 voices had spoken. Black Elk nodded solemnly. "It is witnessed. Now, let all hear this." He turned to face Samuel directly. "You, Samuel Reed, son of Josiah Reed, have shown the old way, the way of honor that existed before papers and laws, when a man's word and deed spoke his truth. My people have a ceremony for this." Dancing Bear brought forward a painted buffalo robe, its surface decorated with pictographs telling stories Samuel couldn't read, but somehow understood they were tales of courage, sacrifice, and kinship. The elderly warrior spread the robe on the ground between Samuel and Black Elk. "Sit," Black Elk commanded, lowering himself to one side of the robe. Samuel sat opposite him, aware of the formality of the moment. Black Elk pulled out his pipe again, this time filling it with a mixture that smelled of sage, tobacco, and sweet grass. He lit it with a burning stick from the fire, drew smoke, then passed it to Samuel. "We share this pipe as brothers," Black Elk said. "Your enemies become our enemies. Your friends become our family. This is not paper law, this is blood law, older and stronger than any white man's court." Samuel drew on the pipe, the smoke harsh but somehow cleansing. He passed it back to Black Elk, who then shared it with Dancing Bear and the other elder warriors. As the pipe passed, each warrior spoke Joseph, translating when necessary. "I am Joseph Crow Dog. I witnessed this adoption. Samuel Reed is now brother to Black Elk, protected by our lance and bow. I am Dancing Bear. This man's father saved my son. Now I claim this man as nephew. His troubles are my troubles." "I am Standing Wolf." A younger warrior spoke. "I doubted this white man's heart. I was wrong. I offer my apology and my protection." The testimonies continued, each warrior making personal declaration. Some spoke of Samuel's small kindnesses they'd witnessed from afar. Others spoke of the principle that any man who fed the hungry from his own hunger deserved respect. Grandmother Whitehawk shuffled forward, her ancient voice rising in a song that needed no translation. It was a naming song, Joseph explained, given when someone was adopted into the tribe. She placed a gnarled hand on Samuel's head, speaking words that sounded like blessing. "She names you he who feeds the hungry," Joseph translated. "It is a chief's name from the old days when generosity determined leadership." "I'm no chief," Samuel protested. "You are now," Black Elk said firmly. "Not chief over others, but chief of your own conscience. You chose right when choosing wrong would have profited you. That is the deepest leadership." As the ceremony continued, the sun climbed higher, its light revealing details hidden by darkness. Samuel noticed things he'd missed: children with bellies not quite full enough, warriors with clothes patched as carefully as his own, women with faces marked by loss and resilience. These weren't the savage raiders of newspaper stories. They were families, displaced and struggling, searching for their scattered people while trying to survive in a world that wanted them gone. Mourning Dove, the mother whose daughter Samuel had helped escape the mission school, approached with a bundle. She knelt before Samuel, placing it in his hands while speaking rapidly in Cherokee. "She says her daughter sent this," Joseph translated. "Made it herself after reaching safety. It's a medicine bag, blessed by their family's medicine man, for protection and guidance." Inside the bundle was a small leather pouch, beautifully beaded with a design that looked like the morning star. Samuel held it carefully. Understanding its value went far beyond craft or materials. "Tell her I'm honored. Tell her I'm glad her daughter is safe." As he spoke, more people came forward with small gifts. A young warrior offered a hunting knife with an antler handle. An elderly woman presented a pair of moccasins, soft as butter from careful working. A child, no more than 5, shyly handed him a river stone with natural markings that looked like a horse. "Why?" Samuel asked Black Elk. "Your people have so little. Why share with me?" "Because you shared when you had less," Black Elk replied. "This is the old way gifts create kinship stronger than blood. Each gift is a promise of connection." Chen Wei had been watching quietly, but now he stepped forward. "In my country, we have similar custom. When someone shows great kindness, we repay with witnessing." He pulled out a small leather journal from his pocket. "I write English and Chinese. I will document what happened here, make true record, so if law comes, if questions arise, there is testimony." "I'll help," Ezekiel offered. "I learned writing during the war. Between us, we can make sure the truth is preserved." Maria's eldest son, a boy of perhaps 14, spoke up. "I can draw. I'll make pictures of what happened, so those who can't read can still see truth." Black Elk stood, raising his voice to address the entire camp. "Let it be known from this day Samuel Reed and Mara Stonecrow are under the protection of the Cherokee who ride free. Any who trouble them will answer to us. Any who help them will be welcomed as friends." The warriors raised their weapons not in threat, but in salute. The sound of their collective war cry echoed across the prairie, probably audible for miles. It was a declaration and a warning combined. As the formal ceremonies concluded, the camp began to shift into the rhythms of mourning. Women started preparing breakfast, using supplies far more generous than the meager meal Samuel had shared the night before. Children, freed from the night's tension, began playing. Warriors tended their horses, the animals magnificent even after a hard night's ride. Mara had been quiet during the ceremonies, but now she approached Samuel. The rising sun backlit her, turning her into something almost mythical, neither the desperate auction girl of last night nor fully the free woman she was becoming, but something in between, transforming. "Your father bought my freedom without knowing me," she said softly. "You defended it without thought of reward. I owe you both more than I can repay." "You owe nothing," Samuel replied. "Freedom isn't a debt to be repaid. It's a right to be protected." She smiled then, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. It transformed her face, revealing the woman she might have been without the weight of suffering. "Still, I choose to stay, if you'll have me, not as property, not as servant, but as—" She paused, searching for words. "As neighbor, friend, maybe, in time, more." Before Samuel could respond, a shout went up from one of the scouts. Riders approaching from the east, not Thornton's men, but a single buggy with two figures. As it drew closer, Samuel recognized the First Bank of Amarillo's representative, Mr. Hartley, and Judge Crawford himself. The camp tensed again, weapons appearing in hands, but Samuel raised his hand for calm. "It's the bank," he told Black Elk. "Come for the ranch. Today's the day." Hartley and Crawford stopped their buggy at the edge of the camp, clearly unnerved by the presence of so many armed warriors. Crawford, an elderly man with mutton-chop whiskers and a judge's perpetual frown, stood up in the buggy. "Mr. Reed," he called out, his voice trying for authority but achieving only nervousness. "We've come about the mortgage, and I've heard disturbing reports about property theft and interference with legal commerce." Samuel walked toward them, Black Elk and Mara flanking him. Behind them, the entire camp watched in silence. "Judge Crawford," Samuel said evenly. "Good timing. We have some documents you should see." Chenway brought forward the freedom papers, the real ones Josiah Reed had purchased 3 years ago. Crawford's face paled as he recognized his own signature. "These were filed with my office," he said slowly. "They should have been." "They were hidden," Mara said, stepping forward. "Hidden so I could be resold. You signed the freedom papers. Judge, do you remember my father paid the full price? $120. Every cent he had." Crawford's hands shook as he examined the papers. There were so many transactions. The auction house handled the filing." "The auction house forged new sale papers," Chenway interjected, showing the comparison between signatures. "See your real signature 3 years ago. Their traced copy 3 days ago." The judge sank back into the buggy seat. If this is true, it's fraud. Criminal fraud." "It's true," Black Elk said, his presence commanding even from ground level while the judge sat in the buggy. 200 witnesses heard Thornton's man confess it. Will your law pursue justice, or must we seek it ourselves?" The threat was implicit but unmistakable. Crawford swallowed hard. "I'll need to investigate. If fraud was committed." He trailed off, then seemed to remember himself. "But that's not why we're here. Mr. Reed, the mortgage." "I know," Samuel interrupted. "I can't pay. The ranch is yours." Hartley, the banker, had been silent, but now he cleared his throat. "Actually, Mr. Reed, about that, we received a rather unusual payment this morning." Samuel frowned. "Payment?" "Yes. A group of investors paid your mortgage in full, plus next year's portion. The ranch is yours, free and clear. Samuel stood stunned. What investors who? Black Elk smiled slightly. The Cherokee Nation may not be recognized by your government, but we still have friends. Traders who remember when our word was good. They owed us favors. We called them in. I can't accept, Samuel began. You already did. Black Elk interrupted. When you fed my niece, when you helped the children return home, when you risked your safety for strangers. This isn't charity, it's settling accounts. Roberto stepped forward. We contributed too. Not much, but some. As did I, Chen Wei added. The Chinese merchants in town, when they heard the story, insisted on helping. The Negro church took up a collection, Ezekiel said. Wasn't much, but every penny helps. Samuel felt his eyes burning with unshed tears. Why would strangers, not strangers? Black Elk corrected. Community. You've been building it for years, one kindness at a time. Now it returns to you. Judge Crawford had been watching this exchange with growing amazement. This is highly irregular, but if the mortgage is paid... He looked at the freedom papers again, then at Mara standing proud and free. I'll need to return to town, investigate these forgery allegations. Mrs. Stonecrow, I apologize for any irregularities in your case. Irregularities, Mara repeated, her voice sharp with controlled anger. That's what you call 3 years of illegal bondage. Crawford had no answer. He and Hartley turned their buggy around, departing much more quickly than they'd arrived, as their dust settled. Black Elk raised his lance one more time. Sing the victory song, he commanded in Cherokee. Not victory in war, but victory of justice, victory of the old ways over the new corruption. 200 voices rose in harmony, the sound rolling across the prairie like thunder. It was a song of triumph without violence, of community over commerce, of human dignity preserved against those who would destroy it. Samuel stood in the center of it all, overwhelmed. His ranch was saved. Mara was free. He'd gained a family of 200 where he'd had none, all from sharing a single meal when he had nothing to share. The sun climbed toward its zenith, warming the earth and the hearts of those gathered. The song continued, telling a story that would be remembered in Cherokee tradition, the night when kindness conquered law, when testimony of good deeds outweighed false papers, when a poor white rancher became a brother by choosing conscience over profit. As the song finally ended, Black Elk placed his hand on Samuel's shoulder. Welcome to the family, he who feeds the hungry. Your true life begins now. The morning sun climbed higher, warming the earth that had witnessed such remarkable events. Black Elk's warriors began breaking camp with practiced efficiency. But this departure felt different from their arrival, less like an ending than a transformation. Women packed their belongings while children ran between the horses, their laughter replacing the tension of the night before. Black Elk stood with Samuel near the corral, watching his warriors prepare. The chief's war paint had been washed away, revealing a face marked by years of struggle, but somehow younger looking in the morning light. We cannot stay, Black Elk said. The army patrols will hear of this gathering. They always do. But before we go... He whistled sharply, and a young warrior brought forward a horse, a paint mare with intelligent eyes and strong legs, clearly one of the better animals in their herd. This is Moondancer, Black Elk said, running his hand along the horse's neck. She carried me through 3 battles and never faltered. Now she's yours. Samuel stepped back. I can't take your horse. You've already done too much paying the mortgage. The mortgage was justice, balancing scales. Black Elk interrupted. This is kinship. When I call you brother, it means something. Moondancer is my gift as your brother. She'll serve you better than that lame gelding. The mare nuzzled Samuel's shoulder, as if agreeing with her former master. Samuel touched her neck gently, feeling the strength beneath the silk-smooth coat. She likes you, Black Elk observed. Animals know truth better than people. They smell kindness or cruelty, no matter what words say. Dancing Bear approached, carrying a parfleche bag heavy with contents. From the warriors, he said simply, setting it at Samuel's feet. Inside were bags of cornmeal, dried venison, pemmican, wild rice, and seeds corn, squash, beans. The three sisters of traditional planting. This is seed corn from our sacred stock, Dancing Bear explained. Saved through removal, through war, through everything. Plant it when the oak leaves are the size of a squirrel's ear. It will grow in drought when white man's corn fails. More gifts appeared. The women brought preserved foods, wojapi thick with berries, dried vegetables, herbs for medicine and cooking. Someone had repaired his broken harness with skilled hands. Another had sharpened all his tools. His woodpile, nearly empty the night before, now stood tall with contributed fuel. Maria and Roberto approached with their children. The eldest boy carried something wrapped in cloth, a crucifix, old and silver. "This came from Spain with my grandmother's grandmother," Maria said. "For protection of your home. We want you to have it." "Maria, I can't. This is your family's." "You are family now," Roberto said firmly. "You saved us when we had nothing. Now we save you back. This is how family works." Chen Wei stepped forward with his own gift, a small abacus and a ledger book. "For keeping accounts when your ranch prospers. And it will prosper. Good men draw good fortune, even if it takes time." Ezekiel brought something unexpected, a collection of books wrapped in oilcloth. "Got these from a traveling preacher who died last winter. Figured since you can read, you might want them. One's about farming techniques. Might help with that seed corn." As the gift-giving continued, Mara stood apart, watching. She'd changed from the auction dress into clothing the Cherokee women had given her, a simple calico skirt and blouse, but clean and dignified. The medicine bag from her mother hung openly at her throat now, no longer hidden. Samuel approached her. "You don't have to decide now," he said quietly. "About staying. You're free to go anywhere. Be anything." "I know," she replied. "That's why I can choose to stay." She looked at the transformed ranch people working together, sharing food, children playing. "I've been property, been runaway, been lost, but here, with you, I could be myself. Mara Stonecrow, whole and real." "It won't be easy," Samuel warned. "People in town will talk, a white man and a Cherokee woman." "Let them talk," Mara interrupted. "After last night, we have 200 warriors who call us family. We have Mexican neighbors, Chinese friends, Negro allies. The whole frontier is changing. Samuel, maybe we can be part of that change." Black Elk approached them. "She speaks wisdom. The old boundaries are breaking. Not fast, not easy, but breaking." He looked at his gathered people. "We must go now. But know this, you are never alone. If trouble comes, send word. Light a fire on that hill." He pointed to a rise visible for miles. "And we will see it." The warriors began mounting their horses. Families climbed into wagons, but before they departed, Grandmother Whitehawk shuffled forward one more time. She pressed something into Mara's hands, a quill-work pouch, intricate with geometric patterns. "For your children." Joseph translated her words. "When they come, they will carry two bloods but one heart. This pouch will remind them they belong to both worlds." Mara's face flushed, but she accepted the gift with grace. "Tell her I'm honored. Tell her I'll try to be worthy of such hope." The departure was not quick. Each warrior rode by Samuel and Mara, offering a word, a nod, a raised lance in salute. The women called out blessings. Children waved from wagon beds. It took nearly an hour for the entire band to pass. As the last wagon disappeared over the rise, the ranch felt suddenly quiet. But not empty, the signs of community were everywhere. The stocked woodpile, the repaired tools, the food supplies that would last months instead of days. "We should put things in order," Samuel said. Practical, despite his emotions. They worked together through the morning. Samuel and Mara, organizing the gifts, storing the food properly, settling Moondancer in the corral with fresh hay. Chen Wei, who had lingered, helped them inventory everything while making his written record of the night's events. "I'll file copies in 3 places," he said. "The territorial office, the newspaper, and with the Chinese Merchants Association. Truth needs multiple witnesses to survive." Roberto and Maria hadn't left either. "We're claiming that southern section," Roberto announced, pointing to unclaimed land adjacent to Samuel's ranch. "With the banknote you signed for us last month as character witness, we can homestead properly. Be good to have neighbors close." "That land's rough," Samuel warned. "Lots of rock, not much water." "We've worked worse in Mexico," Maria said. "Besides, the children like it here. They say Senor Samuel's ranch feels safe." Ezekiel had also stayed behind. "If you don't mind, I'd like to build a small place on your northern boundary. I'm too old to run anymore, and this seems like a place where a man's past matters less than his present." "You're welcome," Samuel said immediately. "We could work the land together, share resources." "Like a community," Mara added, smiling. As the afternoon wore on, the enormity of the change began to settle in. Samuel's isolated ranch was becoming the center of something new, a mixed community where Cherokee, Mexican, Chinese, Negro, and white could live as neighbors. It wouldn't be without challenges, but after the previous night, challenges seemed smaller somehow. Chen Wei prepared to leave as evening approached. "I must return to town, but I'll be back. The merchants want to establish a trading post nearby, somewhere goods can be exchanged fairly, without the prejudice of town." "Here?" Samuel asked, surprised. "Why not? You've proven this can be neutral ground. Black Elk trusts you. The Mexican families know you're fair. The Chinese merchants have heard good things. Even the Negro church speaks well of you. You could be the bridge." After Chen Wei departed, Samuel and Mara found themselves alone for the first time since her arrival. They sat on the porch steps, watching the sun descend toward the western horizon. The same view as 24 hours ago, but everything had changed. "Are you sure about staying?" Samuel asked. "Are you sure about having me?" she countered. "I shared my last meal with you when I had nothing. Now that I have something, why would I not share that too?" Mara studied his face. "It's more than sharing now. The gift Grandmother Whitehawk gave, it's for our children. She sees a future I hardly dare imagine." "What do you see, a possibility?" she said after a moment. "For the first time in my life, possibility." She gestured at the transformed ranch. "This morning you had nothing. Tonight you have food, horses, community, future, all from one shared meal." "The meal didn't create this. It just revealed what was already there. Connections I didn't know I'd made. Kindness that had traveled roads I never saw." They prepared supper together, using some of the gifted food. The table that had held 3 copper coins and crumbs now overflowed venison stew. Fresh bread from Maria's morning baking, preserved fruits, vegetables. Samuel set 2 places, then paused. "Feels wrong. Just 2 plates when we have so much." Mara smiled. "Then set more places. Roberto and Maria will come. Ezekiel too." She was right. As the evening meal cooked, their new neighbors arrived. Maria brought tortillas. Ezekiel contributed greens from his traveling garden. Roberto had caught fish from the creek. The table expanded, more chairs were found, and soon 8 people sat where one had eaten alone just days before. "To new beginnings," Roberto toasted with well water in tin cups. "To community," Chen Wei added, having returned with news that the merchants approved the trading post plan. "To justice," Ezekiel contributed. "To kindness without cost," Mara said, looking at Samuel. "To family, however it forms," Samuel concluded. They ate and talked until stars filled the sky. Plans were made where to build Ezekiel's cabin, how to irrigate Roberto's rocky land, when to plant the sacred corn, how to establish the trading post, Each plan connected to others, weaving a web of mutual support. As the others finally departed to their temporary camps, Mara and Samuel cleaned dishes side by side. The domesticity felt natural, as if they'd done this for years instead of hours. "I'll sleep in the barn tonight," Mara said. "It's proper until..." "Until what?" "Until we decide what we are to each other. Partners, friends, perhaps in time. More, in time," Samuel agreed. "We have that now time." As Mara walked to the barn with fresh blankets, her choice this time, not necessity, Samuel stood on his porch looking out at his land. The same acres as yesterday, but transformed. Moon Dancer whickered from the corral. Smoke rose from Roberto's camp to the south. Ezekiel's lantern glowed to the north. The mortgage was paid. The pantry was full. He had neighbors who were becoming family. And perhaps, in Mara, something even deeper growing, all from choosing to share when sharing seemed impossible. His father's words returned, "The only thing we truly own is what we give away." Tonight, Samuel understood. By giving away his last meal, he'd gained a feast. By offering dignity to one person, he'd earned the respect of hundreds. By choosing kindness over survival, he'd found a reason to survive. A wolf howled in the distance, but it didn't sound threatening anymore. It sounded like the frontier itself, wild but not evil. Dangerous but not without beauty. Challenging but not without reward. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The town would react to a mixed community. Thornton's agency would seek revenge. The army would investigate Black Elk's presence. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, Samuel Reed went to bed not as a failing rancher with 3 coins and no hope, but as a man with family, community, and purpose. As he who feeds the hungry. A name earned not through violence or conquest, but through the simple act of sharing bread with a stranger. The lamp burned low in the cabin window, the same lamp that had illuminated poverty, now warming prosperity. Outside, the barn door stood slightly open, soft light indicating Mara was still awake, perhaps planning her own future in this unexpected haven. Samuel smiled, remembering her words, "I was property, now I'm neighbor. Maybe more. Definitely more," he thought. In time, definitely more. The stars wheeled overhead, constant witnesses to the small human dramas below. On this patch of prairie, something new was being born, not through force or law or paper, but through the ancient human currency of kindness, multiplied and returned. The last meal of Samuel Reed had become the first feast of a new community. And this was only the beginning. You know what strikes me most about Samuel Reed's story? It wasn't the miracle of 200 warriors becoming family overnight. It was that lonely meal he prepared before any of this began, counting 3 coins, cooking his last rabbit, thinking his life was ending. He didn't know that every kindness he'd shown the helped grandfather, the hidden children, the shared medicines had been building something, like seeds scattered in drought, waiting for the right moment to bloom. That's the truth I need to tell you. Family isn't just blood. It's every person you've fed when you were hungry yourself. Everyone you've helped when you needed help more. Samuel thought he was alone. But loneliness is a lie we tell ourselves when we can't see the threads connecting us. Every small kindness weaves those threads stronger. Maria's family, Chen Wei, Ezekiel, Black Elk's warriors, they didn't appear from nowhere. They were always there, waiting to return what had been given. Gratitude isn't just saying thanks. It's recognizing that we're all Samuel Reed, sometimes down to our last meal, thinking we have nothing to offer. But that last meal, shared freely, becomes a feast. That's how community is born. That's how strangers become family. That's how we save each other.